the Manchester derby. Ooh, big game. I know some will probably be cheekily saying, but is it big game for whom? Probably big game for Manchester United in terms of if they and Eric Ten Hag want a massive reality check or an even further reality check than they've been having this season and see really where they are, because we're going to talk about Manchester United's way back now in terms of challenging for titles and the Premier League title again, especially now that we know that the Ineos investment has gone through, that it's, I suppose, the start of a new era in terms of how they will be doing business at Manchester United. But either way, this is going to be a big measuring stick for them, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And it's become the kind of the stock question now to Man United managers before the derby. Whoever it is, whoever the manager is, the question before a derby is always, how far away are you from Man City? How big is the gap between you and Man City? Because ultimately, since Sir Alex Ferguson retired, United have had a bit of a barren spell in terms of success, and City have been the benchmark. They've been a team to beat in the Premier League. The same question was asked to Eric Ten Hag at his press conference on Thursday. You know, the United managers never like to say that the gap is too big, but it's obvious. You just have to look at the league table this season alone. City are second in the table, challenging for the title. United are 15 points adrift and trying to claw their way back into the race for Champions League football next season. The worry for Man United fans heading to the Etihad Stadium on Sunday is that it could be one of those horrible results. You know, City are playing well, they're scoring goals. United have been a little bit better this year in 2024, but had a big reality check against Fulham last weekend, losing 2-1 at Old Trafford. And the fear is that United are going to go to the Etihad Stadium and get beaten very, very comfortably. There's always that hope, you know, that United have got quality players, and you hope that Man United could maybe go to the Etihad and spring some kind of surprise result. You know, they went to Anfield in December and drew 0-0 when no one thought they could get a result. We've seen under different managers, they've gone to the Etihad and surprised people by somehow scraping a win. But, you know, as I said before, the fear for Man United fans heading to the Etihad on Sunday is that City are going to show how superior they are and win very, very comfortably.
How do United then, I suppose, approach this game and Eric Ten Hag? Because as you said, they're coming on the back of what was an embarrassing loss to Fulham. You know, it was obviously lost in the last minute, and you say that there's almost not much you can do there when it happens. People need a bit of luck. We know that managers love to say that. But the performance overall was, again, probably one of the worst that we have seen as well in this season. So how do United approach this game? What's the tactics? Because there's no way that they could go to the Etihad and even try to challenge City in the same style of football that City play.
Yeah, you're right. You know, we've seen time and time again that teams go to the Etihad and try and go toe to toe with City and come off second best. I think United, you know, whether Ten Hag would want to admit it or not, their best chance of success is to defend quite deep and try and hit City on the break. We have seen occasionally this season that teams with pace up front have been able to expose City's high defensive line a little bit. You know, they do play high risk, high reward football. And if you've got a midfielder who has got the quality to pick those passes over that high defensive line and you've got pace up front, you can create chances against City. And then it's about taking as many of those as possibly can and hoping that you defend well on the edge of your own box. And City, with Erling Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden, have an off day. So there is always hope that United can go there and set up in a way that exposes City. The problem is that you mentioned that Fulham game. You know, Fulham really exposed Man United. They had a lot of shots on goal. They ended up scoring twice. You know, they needed a last-minute winner, but they were by far the better team. And even on Wednesday night in the FA Cup, United won against Nottingham Forest 1-0. But Forest will have come away from that game wondering how they didn't score. And United have defended so poorly for so much of this season that you just can't see City playing that game against Man United and not scoring. And then it takes, you know, United would need sort of 2 and 3 to win the game. And United haven't been that clinical team to take 2 and 3 of their chances and score a lot of goals in single games. So, you know, as I said, every sort of category you look at before this game suggests that City are going to win very, very comfortably. But it's football, so you never know.
You never know, indeed. But then now, I suppose, looking at the long-term goal, apart from this game, because there's only so much that the current, I suppose, setup can do on the pitch in time for this match that's on Sunday. But like I said, new investment at United. We're talking about what, maybe a 3, 5, 10-year plan even, Rob? What are you hearing of how long it probably will take before we can start talking about Manchester United challenging for titles again?
Yeah, I mean, one of the more surprising things that Jim Ratcliffe said in his interview after his minority stake in the club was confirmed was he felt that the phrase he used was knock City off their perch, but felt that United could be back challenging City in 3 years. Now, I think that is very, very ambitious. And I mean, fair play to Jim Ratcliffe for being that ambitious and saying, laying out a plan and saying that we think that we can achieve that in 3 years. You can't fault the ambition behind that. I just feel that maybe that is a little bit too ambitious, because you're talking about overhauling almost the entire squad, and City are in that kind of sweet spot now that United found themselves in the 90s and 2000s, where the squad is so strong. They're so used to winning that every summer they're just kind of tweaking their squad a little bit. Maybe one player leaves, maybe they go and sign another world-class player, and they just carry on winning and challenging for trophies and filling their trophy cabinet. United at the moment seem an awful long way off that. And for all the grand plans that Jim Ratcliffe has got, about revamping the structure behind the scenes, about redoing Old Trafford, really his biggest test is going to be how to overhaul the squad to the point where they can challenge City, and it's just not easy. You can't rip up the squad and start again from scratch. You can knock down a stadium and start building a new one, but you can't do that with a squad. That it has to be a very gradual process, particularly because United have got financial fair play concerns. It means that they can't go out and spend 500 million in one summer and try to sort of bridge the gap that way. It's going to have to be quite a gradual process. And the worry is that if you look at the two squads on paper right now, United just look miles behind City's. They haven't got an Erling Haaland, they haven't got a Kevin De Bruyne, they haven't got a Ruben Dias. So it's going to take an awful long time to get them back on the same level. In fairness to Jim Ratcliffe, he said that it's not going to be, a short-term thing. That the hope is that they can do it in 3 years, but probably in reality, it's going to be closer to sort of 5 and maybe even 10 years. He's promised that he's going to stick around long enough to see that through. And really, it needs United to start having very, very good transfer windows very, very quickly. Starting with the summer, it means that you can't afford to get any of these signings wrong. And in the past, United have got signings wrong. And there are players in the squad who United fans would say that have been poor signings. I would point to the likes of Anthony from Ajax for 86 million. Just hasn't worked out. United can't afford any more missteps. The hope is that they get these top professionals off the field, the likes of Dan Ashworth at Newcastle, Omar Barada, who's coming in from Man City, and they begin to sort out the recruitment problems that United have had. But beyond that, they just can't afford any more missteps. Every single signing now that they make has to improve that squad and has to get them closer to City. Otherwise, we could be sat here in another 10, 15, 20 years talking about how United bridge the gap to City. It's that important to get that recruitment right.
How do you expect that to change, though, how they go about it? Because as we've said, spending money for Manchester United has not been an issue. They have had money and they have spent money. It's just been spent either on the wrong players, as you mentioned, like Anthony, or in the past as well, in terms of since Sir Alex Ferguson left, buying ready-made players probably towards the end of their career, like we saw with Zlatan, we saw with Alexis Sanchez. Those probably didn't work out as much as they would have liked them to. So how will it change now? Is it scouting younger talent and then hoping to, make them into some of the top United players like we saw back in the day by the time it's 5-10 years?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's everything. I mean, everything to do with recruitment, they have to improve upon. Because recruitment, really, you talk about the problems that United have had over the last 10 years. The biggest one in my mind is recruitment. That's why they have failed so terribly over the last decade. And they need to make smarter decisions, and they need to make smarter decisions everywhere. And that means having a coherent transfer policy. In the past, you mentioned the likes of Alexis Sanchez, a signing from Arsenal, who his contract was running down, so that they decided that they needed him. Zlatan Ibrahimovic again was a striker coming to the end of his career. They seem to have just made sort of very, very random decisions when it's come to recruitment. There hasn't been a sort of a cohesive transfer policy like we've seen at City. Most of City's signings, you can understand why they've done it. It follows a general plan that they've had since even before Pep Guardiola arrived. Whereas United, they've let different people make the decisions. They let managers come in and pick their own players. they've had different sporting directors who have come in and picked their own players. There hasn't been one kind of philosophy that the entire club has got behind, and that's where really it has to start. I guess the hope is that they've made such a push to sign Dan Ashworth from Newcastle as their new sporting director, is that he's going to be the one to lead that policy, that it's going to mean that the manager maybe has less of an influence over the transfer policy, and the policy going forward is going to be a bit more cohesive, that it's just going to follow the same plan, that everyone's going to be on the same page, because for 10 years it hasn't been like that.
And you say, of course, the first order of business maybe to just overhaul this squad, which is something I think a lot of fans have been pushing for some time now. And this is a bit of a loaded question and a difficult one. There's two parts, because just of the current squad, especially some of the young talent we have, and I'm talking about the ones that we've seen, like Alejandro Garnacho, as well as Kobbie Mainoo, who's been very highly praised. How many of them do you actually see playing a massive part in this United plan going forward, and probably still there at the club in terms of 5-10 years? And where does this leave a certain Marcus Rashford? You probably would have seen, I think everybody now, his recent article where he said that, you know, people are wrong to question his criticism, his commitment rather, for Manchester United. He is somebody that you and I both know personally, and he does embody Manchester United through and through. So where does he factor in to all these plans too, and who else probably will still be there?
Yeah, I mean, just on Marcus first. I mean, obviously he's entitled to his right to reply and his opinion, and he's sort of said that, you know, it's not fair for the media or social media to question his commitment to Man United, and I can understand that. I think at the moment, though, the problem that Marcus has is that his relationship with the Man United fans is a little bit broken. That as an academy graduate, they are desperate for him to do well. They are desperate for him to be the face of Man United, because he's a local boy, you know, from Wythenshawe, come up through the academy and become this sort of first team star. They are desperate for him to do well. The problem has been this season, particularly, occasionally they have thought that maybe he's not putting the effort in that they would see as kind of the minimum requirement. It's obviously been a difficult season for Marcus in terms of goal scoring. He's only got 5 goals. You know, you would expect that his numbers to be higher than that. But Man United fans don't expect strikers to score every week. They understand that you know, form come and goes. But what they don't like is when they think that a player, whoever it is, whether it's Marcus or someone else, when they believe that he's not putting all of his effort into it. And there have been spells of this season, not sort of entire games, but spells this season where United fans have criticised his effort and you know, is he running enough? Is he trying as hard as he could do? So really, as valid as Marcus Rashford is to coming out and sort of saying that, you know, you can't question my commitment to Man United, the best way to solve that and solve his relationship with Man United fans is to prove it on the pitch. And just every single time you walk out on the pitch is to try as hard as you can, you know, run and put that effort in, that minimum requirement that fans have of Man United players. Do it every week and you won't have a problem. You know, United fans don't need you to score or don't expect you to score every week. They just want to see that minimum requirement of effort, and just that care and that commitment that you talk about. They want to see it on the pitch. In terms of going forward, again, you know, United fans would love him to be the face of Man United going forward. And you're right, you know, you point to the likes of Marcus Rashford, Kobbie Mainoo, Alejandro Garnacho, Rasmus Højlund. They really are the core of that squad, that young core of the squad, who is going to be central to United getting back to winning trophies in the future and challenging City. You know, beyond that, there are obviously other sort of players who you would like to keep, the likes of Luke Shaw. You know, Andre Onana has turned a corner a little bit since the start of the year. But beyond that, you know, there isn't an awful lot else in that squad that you would say in 5 years that they're still going to be there. And really, that is part of the problem. You know, this isn't a simple job for Jim Ratcliffe and Erik ten Hag if he's going to stay as manager. It's not a simple job to mould this squad into title challengers. There's an awful lot of work that needs to be put in behind the scenes going forward to turn this squad into a title challenging squad. And that's why I said at the start of this show that I thought that 3 years was a little bit ambitious for Jim Ratcliffe to start saying that they could challenge City, because there is there is that much work to do. This isn't going to be a simple fix. Beyond the core of sort of 5, 6, 7 players, there isn't an awful lot else there that you would say, they are title winners, they are Champions League winners. And that's ultimately what has to change.